Hello and Merry Christmas from Money Tips, Charles Kelly. Great to see you all again. Hope you've had a good year and you are looking forward to a good year ahead in 2022. So how do you think you're going to prosper in 2022? What does 22 have in store for you? Now, most of you might say, well, here it is, I'm planning this or that. But many of you will say, well, it depends on the economy. It depends on, lockdowns and pandemics. It depends on the government, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Federal Reserve, whatever, but if we've learned anything over the past 100 years from books like Think and Grow Rich and The Science of Getting Rich, success and where you are has a lot more to do with what's going on in your head than it does with in terms of the wider economy. So the answer lies not so much in the wider economy, but in your own economy, your economy, what you are doing for your own economy. Your own economy is what money you're bringing into the household and what money you're spending. That's your miniature economy, if you like. And you've got to concentrate on that rather than just thinking about, watching the news and thinking about all the doom and gloom. I mean, there is a lot of doom and gloom. Just this year, I heard, just today, I heard that 2,000 flights have been cancelled around the world as people cancel trips or people are unable to go on trips. But you could look at that and say, well, that's terrible. But you've got to get on. You've got to move on with things. And, one of the reasons Brian Tracy said that people who migrate, migrants succeed in the first few years very quickly is that a lot of them just don't watch the news. Some of them cannot speak that English very well, or they don't watch the TV of the local TV where they're living, and they haven't got time to watch TV. So they're not watching the news and they're not sucking in all the bad news. So when people say to them, have you heard there's a recession? They say, well, I don't know. I'm out doing my thing. They're out hustling and working and running their businesses and getting wealthy. And this is, it sounds like a funny thing, but I believe that is true. Most migrant people I speak to, even after many years of living in the country, they're getting on with their work and their business and working hard. They're not sitting around worrying about the news. In fact, if you talk to them about items in the news, they say, oh, yeah, I think so, yeah. Oh, there's a pandemic on this. Well, they know that much, but, they don't sort of sit down and watch the news 4 or 5 times a day and sit there worrying. So ask yourself these questions. What's your plan? What is your plan for next year? What is your plan for the next 5 years? And if you haven't got one, maybe it's about time you had one. And if you've got a plan, you've got a written goal, you've got a dream, you've got something you want to achieve, is it written down? We know that if you write things down, you're more like 100 times more likely to achieve it or even start it than you are if it's just a vague dream of, well, I'd like to earn more money. Someday I'd like to be wealthy. Someday I'd like to have a big house. What is a big house? How much is more money? And when do you want to earn more money? These are things you've got to look at. So, write them down and set a target for it. What steps are you taking then to achieve your goals? You're not going to achieve them by just sitting there going, the money will come, the money will come. No, you've got to go out and work for it. Even, religious people and, the Buddhas and all the religious people who say, look to the universe, pray, but they always say you've got to do the work as well. So what action steps are you taking? Action steps could be as simple as, making a call, doing some research, putting something into motion so that you get that motion, you get that momentum going straight away rather than just, writing it down and doing nothing. I may have told you this story before, but many years ago, I think I might have mentioned it in this book, my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. But many years ago, I had a business. We employed a lot of people and we needed to expand. So we went to the bank for more, for a loan. And it was quite a big loan. It was going to be unsecured. And we needed a business plan. So we called in this consultant who, I think it was from the local business network. And we called somebody in and he said, look, you need a proper business plan with cash flow forecasts, with projected accounts and figures and all this sort of stuff. And he knocked up a really good business plan. I think it was about 30 pages. And quite frankly, I didn't understand a lot of it because all these figures were there. And, and then we gave him the stuff that we were going to achieve. Like we'll do this, we'll do that by X, Y, Z. And he put that all together for us very successfully. And he actually had to come along to the bank with us to go through it, because they were asking, the figures, like, what does this figure mean? Why is it in year 3? Your projection is this and that. They were going into that, and he stepped in and explained it. But we explained the overall concept of the company, of course. We know what we wanted to achieve. And then we got the loan, great. And I put that business plan away in my desktop drawer and forgot about it. And then a few years later, I was clearing out the desk and I said, oh, this is this business plan. I said to my partner, look at this, this is the business plan. I looked down at the things we said we'd achieve. And you know what happened? We'd actually achieved, I think, 9 out of 10 of those things that we wanted to achieve, we'd actually done, even though we'd written them down and put it away in a drawer. So if that can work for someone who just puts it away in a drawer, it will work for you if you write down detailed plans and start. I mean, we were working on things, but we weren't looking at that goal sheet every day. But I promise you that if you do that and you look at your goals and you work on them every day, and maybe you do it on a spreadsheet where you have steps to take, or you put it on a wall, or you just write it on a chart or something, then you know that you're working towards those things. Now, you might want to think about that in your New Year's resolution. I don't personally, I'm not a great fan of New Year's resolutions. Like, I'll lose weight and then join a gym and then end up leaving the gym halfway through January. But I do work on goals all the time. This year I've been working on my new book, Borrow and Grow Rich. I've been putting together a course, Smart Money Manager, and a money mastery course. So that's done. I've done a lot of things this year, and it all takes time, and you work on, you chip away at things. I've also been working on things in my property business as well. But I don't sit down on the January the 1st and say, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm working on things all the time. I review things, and that's important. You've got to review. That's in my book, one of the 3 steps, the 3 R's, review. But, if January the 1st is good for you, then great. Look at it. This is a good time to reflect on what you've achieved in the last year and where you want to be next year. So where do you want to be next year? Where do you want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Have you thought about that? Maybe you should project forward and say, this is where I want to be. And then look at this long-term thinking and then think back. Imagine that you'd already achieved that goal, like you've where you wanted to be, and sit down and meditate on it and think about, what steps did I need to take to get there? And, very successful people do this. Athletes do this. They take a long-term view. Most of us underestimate what we can do in the long term, but we overestimate what we can't do. And I just think, by writing things down, by working on things, there's loads of books on goals you can read out there. But make sure that, you take the action steps and your goals are realistic. If you're earning $50,000 this year or £30,000 and you want to increase your income, rather than saying, well, I want to earn $2 million next year, why not say, well, look, I'll increase my income by 20%. If you say $2 million, and that's going to be such a big figure in your mind that you're probably not even going to aim for it. You may not even get started. You'll get very despondent within the first couple of months. So pick out something that you can achieve. I'm not saying downgrade things, but maybe say I want to be earning $1 million a year within 5 years' time. But if you try and make it too unrealistic, you're going to struggle. So that's something you've really got to look at. Make it realistic, make it achievable, and make sure you've got steps there to start putting it into action. So start thinking about that. If you wanted to increase your income by 20%, one of the steps you could take might be to set up a side hustle, set up an online business. I've put out posts about that, how to set up online businesses. Many people are doing this. Many people are making a lot of money doing online selling, online Amazon trading, online business, whatever it is, online marketing, affiliate marketing. There's lots of things you can do. Or you can say, well, one of the ways I'm going to increase my income is get a part-time job on a Saturday. Or I'm going to change my job. I'm going to get my CV together and send it out and get a higher paid job. All these things you can do. So those would be steps to take. They don't have to be necessarily minutely detailed, but you have to take some steps. Okay, so what's been happening this year? Well, it's been a momentous year, hasn't it? The last couple of years especially. And now we're in the 21st year of the 21st century. And there's been a number of firsts. The first time I think so much money has literally been created out of thin air, quantitative easing and all that sort of stuff. The first time, a new medicine has been mandated, you must take this medicine on a scale, a worldwide scale, right? I think it's the first time that citizens have been threatened with, fines and imprisonment for not taking this new medicine, which I believe is unlicensed as of now, and even put into prison for this. And we've seen this in countries like Australia and Austria. And this is coming. So it's the first time this is happening where freedoms have been changed. Things have changed in the last year. First time people and economies have been literally sort of locked down. Right now we've got a variant, the Omicron variant, which the South African scientists who discovered this variant have said it's no worse than a bad cold or flu. And yet we're locking down almost the whole world. I mean, as I said, all these people have cancelled their holidays, all these people who have cancelling trips, cancelling restaurant bookings. It is really bad out there. And I think it's the first time that governments and organisations like the UN and the World Health Organization have really seemed to act together, where every country seems to be doing the same thing. Now in the UK right now, we've got various sections of the UK. A few days before Christmas, the governments of the various parts of the UK, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England, said that you'll be spared Christmas. You can have your Christmas this year. Well, thanks. That's really nice of you. But different parts of the country said, well, but after Christmas, on the 27th of December, we're going to lock everything down again. We're going to restrict you. You can't go this. You can't do that. So the New Year trade has been ruined in those countries. But in England, we don't know what's going to happen after Christmas. They've just said, carry on with your Christmas, enjoy your Christmas, but be safe and all that sort of stuff. But businesses here don't know in London what's going to happen after Christmas. Are they going to shut them down again? So pubs and restaurants, and they think, well, do we order more food for next week? Or are they going to come out on Boxing Day and start locking everything down again? So it really is a bad time. And it's actually damaging the New Year trade, which is one of the biggest nights of the year for many businesses in the hospitality trade that have already had a hard time. They were just getting over the last, the events of the last couple of years. Then we see that the markets, now what's happening with the markets, despite the UK still really being in the biggest recession in 300 years, not really out of it. We're still down on trade figures from 2019 and running up the largest national debt since the war, since the Second World War, and it's the same in America and many other countries. The property markets and stock markets have gone up. Does that make sense to you? Well, it doesn't to me. I thought that things would be corrected quite some time ago. I didn't account for the amount of money that has been pumped in, artificially pumping up this market with, as I said, quantitative easing, which is creating money out of thin air, basically, and historically low interest rates, which have been kept down despite inflation. They've kept interest rates down. So there's trillions of dollars of cheap money. If you think of mergers and acquisitions, companies buying up other companies, it's hit record levels because there's all this cheap money available. And even companies using this money to buy back their own shares and pay themselves very nice dividends and bonuses. So when will this party end? Well, all the parties come to an end in the end, some stage. They don't just go up and up forever. We shouldn't just think that markets will just keep going up in this upward spiral like climbing Everest. It does dip and goes up and down. Now, my estimate is that 2022 will be the year when the stock markets either crash or have a big correction, and then the chickens will come home to roost. There's chickens of massive debt, of spending sprees. I mean, in America, they're now approving a $2.5 trillion spending spree. In the UK, we spent $300 billion on the lockdown, despite the fact that we were told there was no money there. We were still getting out of the last recession from 2008, and we had to tighten our belts. And yet all this money just comes out of thin air almost. So now I know that I've talked about a 2021 correction, but that hasn't happened. Why? Because there's so much money going into the market. Trillions of dollars are going into ETFs and mutual funds and stock markets. That's what's buoying up the market. And we know that the The markets are way overpriced. The PE ratios are at record levels. If you look at things like the Schiller index, the Buffett index, they will show you that on their calculations, stocks and shares are way overpriced. It must come to an end at some stage. Properties, we know, have got out of the reach of many people. The only reason they're able to buy them, first-time buyers, is because of money coming from their parents, drawing out equity from their house, and maybe they had their mortgage paid off, but they're drawing out the equity to help their kids and their grandchildren get on that property ladder. And of course, we've got cheap interest rates, which makes people a lot bolder when they borrow huge amounts of money. But interest rates have just gone up in the UK, and they will go up in America. The FT said that there should be 3 rate rises next year. That's in the Financial Times. So rates will go up, and I think that could be the trigger that will set the markets correcting themselves and maybe going down. And we've got inflation running at the highest rate for nearly 40 years. So countries will eventually have to increase rates to stop that inflation running away. Now, other experts say that inflation will be just temporary and it will eventually go away. We don't know, but we know that interest rates have started to go up in many countries around the world, but not yet in America. I think they're frightened to increase rates because it will affect the markets. It will also affect the amount of money that they pay on the trillions of bonds that they've borrowed on, and that will affect their payments. So if you think a small 0.25% rate rise is not going to have much effect, well, it will affect everybody because we're all going to be paying for the government spending and their borrowing on these bonds. So we're all going to be paying for it one way or another because the government doesn't have any money. They take it from taxpayers like you and me. Now, inflation is rising around the world. As I said, more money's been printed in the last couple of years than at any time in history. The official US rate of inflation is 6.8%. But if you look at things called shadow stats, which looks at what the real underlying figures are, based on their figures, based on how they used to calculate inflation, they think inflation is really running at 15%. And we know that I've seen things go up by more than 50%. Energy costs are set to double for millions of people, which will increase the price of all goods and services because businesses consume energy. Businesses consume petrol and oil and all these things. Now, property and share prices have continued to boom in 2021, leaving many investors thinking that prices will just continue going up, will go up indefinitely. But it never works like that. You can't just expect that property is just going to keep going up and up and up. Yeah, over the long term it goes up, but there's always dips, even when there's supply and demand issues. Even when there's a shortage of properties, if the demand goes down, the prices will go down and people will stop buying or they will just not be able to buy. So it's never happened in my lifetime. I've seen many property crashes and stock market crashes. I've seen many recessions, and I think we're going to see some more not too long from now. Halifax recently said that the property market will slow. I think they predicted a growth of 2% in 2022. Now, I've never heard a leading lender or a large estate agency say that the market will fall. They use words like ease, slow, project, level out. That's sort of. They never say it's going to fall, but they're virtually saying it's going to fall, but just grow by lower rates. That's what they're saying, and that's the Halifax, one of the biggest lenders in the country, or maybe the biggest lender. This year we saw millions of migrants on the move. Right, the last couple of years have seen unprecedented amounts of migrants, refugees, asylum seekers just really marching across large swathes of continents, marching across Europe, marching across South America into America and Mexico. This is unprecedented, really. And in countries like Bangladesh, we think we've got a migrant crisis here, but millions of people have landed on Dhaka in Bangladesh, displaced by flooding and sea levels rising. So they've got a huge problem there, and they haven't got the money to cope with it. So it's not just in the West; it's all over the place, and that's been a big feature of the last couple of years. Many of them have been trafficked across borders, but in the past people would apply to come into a country. Now they're just more or less walking in or jumping on a boat and just turning up on the beach and saying asylum. We've seen climate disasters as well. We've seen huge things like cyclones and typhoons, like the one just recently that has destroyed 90% of homes in islands like Surigao and Siargao in the Philippines, the southern islands of the Philippines. And, we in the West are worrying about, can we get our turkey before Christmas? Are we going to run out of turkeys? What are we going to eat for Christmas? And filling up with all this food when, it makes you think that a lot of people haven't got any food. In those islands in the Philippines, they haven't got enough food to eat because everything's been destroyed. Their homes are gone. Everything's gone. They've got nowhere to cook it. They've got no fresh water. So that's why I've run a fundraiser in conjunction with the Rotary clubs, because I'm a member of Rotary, and they're on the ground there doing some good work. So I put up a fundraising on Facebook there on the group. So please have a look at that. Do have a look at that. And if you can contribute even a small amount, it will help those people that will not be having a Merry Christmas. They'll be going hungry. And, people have already died of dehydration in these countries because they haven't got enough fresh water. So do think about those people that, it's not very merry for them. Now, getting back to what I was saying, money has also migrated across the world from countries like China, Russia, other countries where they want to put it into a so-called safe haven in, London, Sydney, Auckland, Perth, Vancouver, Toronto. These property markets have boomed in the last couple of years, artificially again, because of all this money coming in from wherever. But that's another feature of the last couple of years. And wealthy people are also seeking out second and third residences. Maybe they want another passport. They want to have that choice of saying, well, if things go wrong in my country, I can hop over and stay there, maybe for paying less tax. And there are many countries out there that will give you a residency for the long term, or even a passport for cash or a property investment. I've talked about that on previous podcasts. So look, financial education is always the key to building wealth and keeping wealth. So do keep looking at my free stuff out there on YouTube and my regular financial updates on Facebook, on iTunes, and all the podcasts I put out. Please like and share them to get it out to more people. And I would ask you one other thing. Do you think you can get rich by saving alone? You can do so much by saving, but you're not going to really become wealthy just by saving. Or if you do, it will take you many, many, many years, perhaps 30 or 40 years of saving into your pension. However, I've written a book called Borrow and Grow Rich, because most people who become rich do so using other people's money. It's the secret of OPM, the miracle of using other people's money and what we call leverage. So in my book, Borrow and Grow Rich, which I've just published, I'll put it out there on Amazon for pre-launch. So please do order a Kindle copy of that. It's very, very cheap. It costs you less than a croissant and a cup of coffee. And try and help me get that to out to more people by pre-ordering that book online. I'll put a link up there. And if you do that, I'll send you a free PDF copy of this book, my last book, which is called Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. I'll send you a PDF of that, and just for buying, send me confirmation of your order, and I'll send you that PDF. Absolutely no obligation, just for helping me out and getting that book. And also, there's another offer I'm putting out there, which you can download chapter 1 and 2 for free, and I'll put a link up there for that. So I wish you a Merry Christmas. Hope you all have a great holiday break, and you can all spend time and quality time with your family. And I wish you a very prosperous and happy new year. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.